Am I wrong for hiding my girlfriend's heels before going to my sister's wedding? To start off, I'm going to mention that I'm your typical 5'6" short guy. You can't say typical and then 5'6" in the same sentence. I hate myself. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. I hate myself for it. I'm openly insecure about it and have exhausted all solutions to fix the issue. I met my girlfriend 6 months ago. She met my family and they all embraced her right away. My sister invited her to the wedding and mentioned including her in the wedding photos. I asked my girlfriend what shoes she was going to wear and she showed me a pair of high heels that would have basically made her look 2 times taller than me. I asked if she could consider wearing sandals instead since there was going to be photos and I didn't want to look like a gnome sitting next to her. She called me silly and brushed off my concerns, which was not appreciated. The day of the wedding, I hid her pair of heels. She has only one set in the apartment because she moved out all the old ones after I asked her to. She tried looking for them and really seemed to think something strange happened. I started telling her to hurry up so that we can go to the venue on time and she ended up wearing flats as a replacement. You're a bad man. Everything went well, and I gave her high heels back once we got home. She was shocked when she saw me holding them. I admitted hiding them for the reasons I stated above, and she got mad at me and said that I shouldn't have done that and forced her to wear sandals that completely didn't match with the dress. She kept saying I got what I wanted, but she will forever look awkward in these photos wearing those sandals. I do think she has every reason to be upset with me, but what was I supposed to do after I made my wishes clear and she brushed them off knowing full well how I felt about those high heels? So, am I the asshole? I really thought of it as a harmless move and I think she might have overreacted. Yo, dude, are you serious? Do you know how you sound right now?
Should I tell my mom that my stepdad is putting the moves on me? AKA her husband. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My mom and I have always had a really good relationship. She's pretty much been my best friend all throughout my life. I was bullied heavily in school, so I always confided in my mom. I mean, I tell my mom everything, even about boys. When I was in high school, my parents got divorced. Right after the divorce, my mom had set her sights on this one guy. He lived in our neighborhood, was single, and had a lot of money. Now, you could say my mom wanted his money, or you could say that she fell in love with him. I'm not sure which one. They ended up getting married right when I turned 17. My mom and I moved into his house, and it was amazing. It was actually more like a mansion. He had a pool, a movie theater, and a tennis court. So my house was the house that all my friends would come to. And my mom was really happy, I could tell. But there were a few things that I didn't like about my new stepdad. For example, whenever my friends would come over, he would always try to hang out with us. At first I thought it was just really annoying. But after a year of this happening, I realized it was actually kind of gross. So I opened up to my mom and I told her that I didn't like him hanging around my friends. And my mom laid the hammer down. After that, he would not come around at all whenever my friends and I were downstairs. Here's where things start to get a little icky. When I turned 19, I could tell he was staring at me more and more. Should I tell my mom that my stepdad, her husband, is trying to hit on me? Disclaimer, is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. When I turned 19 is when I started noticing that he would stare at me more and more. I usually would walk around the house in my bikini whenever I was gonna go in the pool. Sometimes I would wear shorts and crop tops around the house, or be in a sports bra and leggings whenever I was working out. But his staring clearly made me uncomfortable. So I literally had to change the way that I dressed. And I didn't want to tell my mom just because I thought maybe I was reading too much into it. Instead, I told my best friend. And when I told my best friend, she told me that I needed to be really careful around him. She told me I shouldn't even be alone with him in the house. I started to get really paranoid. One day, my stepdad asked me why I stopped dressing the way that I used to. Point blank, I said to him, well, you stare a lot and it makes me uncomfortable. The smile on his face turned into pure anger. Then he started calling me stupid and ignorant. He said that I was dumb for thinking that and that he was totally in love with my mom and that he would never ever see me that way. But he continued to stare at me. A few months later, we decided to have a party on my mom's birthday. Well, my stepdad got hammered, and when no one was looking, he sat down next to me and put his hand on my lap. That's when he said that he missed the way that I used to dress. And the look on his face was disgusting. Part 3 is up. Should I tell my mom that my stepdad has been hitting on me, aka her husband? Disclaimer, it's not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. When he put his hand on my lap, I pushed him away and told him he was being disgusting. That's when he grabbed my hand and told me that there was nothing wrong with him appreciating my beauty. And remember, we're at my mom's birthday party. I went over to my mom with the intention to tell her, but she was having so much fun and it was her birthday, I didn't want to spoil it. For the rest of the night, I had to avoid him. He would follow me everywhere and try to grab my hand. I finally went up to my bedroom and locked myself in there. A few days after the party, he came up to me and said, I need to apologize to you. And I said, what for? That's when he said, you know why. Then he told me he made reservations at a really nice restaurant for us to go to. And of course, I said no. That's when he told me that we were both adults, that we could hang out together when my mom wasn't around. I said no, and I've been avoiding him since then. But I think avoiding him is doing the opposite. He now started sending me gym selfies. I told him he needed to stop, and he said he just wanted to send me his progress so that I could be proud of him. Ew. Never. I decided that I should move out and I've started looking for my own apartment. I thought maybe I should wait until I move out to tell my mom, or maybe not tell her at all. No, this is gonna break her heart and flip her world upside down. She has a really comfy life with him, but I don't think that's worth losing me, right? How should I tell my mom? My biggest fear is that she doesn't believe me. What should I do? Storytime about how I married my blind date after knowing each other for 2 weeks. After I broke up with my ex who cheated on me 4 times, I swore off men. But my friends and family were constantly telling me that I should at least try dating other people. I went 2 full years without dating anyone, and it was the best decision I ever made. Instead of going out on dates, I decided to take that time to work on myself. I prioritized myself and started doing the things that I've always wanted to do. For example, I always wanted to learn how to play the piano, so I put myself into piano classes. I also started taking belly dancing classes, and I signed up to Pilates. I also decided to focus on my mental health because I realized that I always depended on validation from men. I was the happiest I'd ever been. My family even saw the changes in me, and my mom told me that maybe it was time for me to start dating. Last year, my sister signed up to a bunch of dating apps, and she actually met some really good men. I really thought about it long and hard, and I decided to sign up for one too. And I told myself that I would take it slow and easy. Finally, I went on my first date. It didn't go very well because my date only talked about himself and didn't ask me any questions. But then my second date was this amazing guy. And I kid you not, it was love at first sight. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I married my blind date after knowing each other for only 2 weeks. So I walk into the restaurant and I know what he looks like. He was already sitting at the table, but as soon as we locked eyes, it was instant attraction. But not just attraction, it was love. I honestly don't know how to describe it. It was this feeling I'd never felt before. When I sat down at the table, we instantly connected. We talked about everything, from our childhoods up until that point. We talked about school, friends, even our favorite foods, favorite colors, places we wanted to visit. I'm talking about everything. We even talked about our family problems, which I had never done that with anyone else. We basically ordered the entire menu. And over the next 5 hours, we talked and ate and laughed. You know when there's moments of silence in a conversation, and sometimes it's awkward? There was none of that. We were constantly talking and asking each other questions. The restaurant actually had to tell us to go home. When we said goodbye, he asked me if he could take me to breakfast the next day. And of course, I said yes. As I was driving home, I knew that this was the guy I wanted to marry. For the next week, we hung out almost every single day when we weren't working. And we texted each other day and night. He would send me paragraphs. By the end of the week, he asked me if he could meet my parents. We had a wonderful dinner and my parents loved him. He put so much effort into talking to them and even brought them gifts. The following day, I met his family, and they loved me too. The following Monday, he asked me to move in with him, and I said yes. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how I married my blind date after only knowing each other for 2 weeks. After 1 week of knowing each other, he asked me to move in. Like I said, my parents loved him, but when I told him that we were going to move in together after knowing each other for 1 week, they thought it was a terrible idea. But there was no way I was backing out on moving in with him. I told him that this was a risk I was willing to take. I was a grown adult, so I had the final word. That very same week, I started moving all my stuff in. After living together for 3 days, we were having so much fun. I was living with my best friend. We would tell each other everything. We decided to host a dinner for our family and friends. His family got along really well with my family, and his friends ended up loving me. By the end of that second week, my boyfriend was talking about getting married, and I said it would be a dream to marry him. And guess what? The next day, he takes me out for an early breakfast. While we're sitting at the restaurant, the server brings over a box, and he tells me to open it. And inside was a beautiful emerald ring. I had told him on our first date that emeralds were my favorite stones. He got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. And I said yes. In order to avoid having to convince our families, we went straight to the court and got married the following day. Yes, I know it's totally crazy, but I am so happy. We've been married now for 3 years. We've traveled to 8 different countries, and we also decided to have children. I never thought I would marry the man of my dreams after 2 weeks of knowing him, but my risk paid off. What should we name our first baby?
I got her pregnant because she cheated on me. Hi, my name is Elias and I'm currently 28 years old. I just graduated from college with a JD degree, so therefore I'm trying to be a lawyer. So I met this girl, Sarah, off of Tinder. Sarah was one of the most beautiful girls I'd ever met. And honestly, I was kind of hesitant to date her for this very reason, because most pretty girls tend to be cheaters. But I decided to go for it anyways. I took that risk. She was one of the most sweetest and loyal girls ever, or so I thought she was. But after 7 months of dating, I went over to her place to surprise her, and I literally saw her making out with another guy in front of her place. And I wanted to get revenge. I wanted to officially make her mine, attached to me for life. So obviously the only solution was to get her pregnant. So I surprised her with this really fancy date and bought a really fancy hotel in New York City. And then I decided to, do it with her. But she wanted to use a condom since she wasn't on birth control. But I simply poked holes in every single condom. And then I waited. About a month later, I got a text that she was pregnant.
I got her pregnant because she cheated on me, part 2. So after that, she had texted me that she was pregnant and she was freaking out. She said, "What had happened when we used condoms? I don't understand." I just told her I don't know. I asked her if she was deciding to keep the baby and she said no. So I ended up gaslighting her into keeping the baby. And she actually ended up keeping the baby. but we aren't together anymore, but I still have contact with her, which is all that matters. 2 years later, we have a beautiful baby girl. We co-parent in a healthy way, and I'm not gonna lie, we do get together sometimes, if you know what I mean. Even though she has a boyfriend, but it doesn't really matter to me. As long as she's in my life, I have no issue with it. Sometimes our 2-year-old even begs us to stay together sometimes, because she wants mommy and daddy to be together. Do you think the girl made the right decision by keeping the baby? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoy crazy story times like this, make sure to follow for more. If you want uncensored, more crazy story times, make sure to check out my YouTube channel.
Storytime about when I woke up to a hooded figure standing over me. Due to a multitude of factors, including a recent death of a close friend, I was unbearably depressed at this time in my life. For that reason, my family flew across the country to visit me in LA, where I live. We thought it would be nice to visit Catalina Island. When we arrived, it became apparent to us that it was off-season. It was late November, the weather was cold, and as a result, the island was nearly empty besides locals and a few straggling tourists such as ourselves. Our first priority was to ditch our luggage so we could explore the island, so we immediately checked into our motel, though that word hardly does this place justice. I call it a motel because all the doors to the rooms exited to the outside, but in actuality, our room was one of 20 to 30 quaint guest house-looking buildings arranged in a sort of horseshoe shape around a walkway, with rooms on either side of the path. The entrance to the motel was essentially one of the points of the horseshoe, and if you walked dead straight, you'd reach the room that we were given, essentially on the corner before you have to go right to go further into the horseshoe. So from our room, one path led back to the street, the other further into the secluded maze of rooms. After a day of exploring and having just finished dinner, it was time for a cold, dark walk back to the room. Catalina Island is a decent distance from the mainland, and let me just say, it gets dark. Similarly dark was my headspace after the dinner conversation took a left turn and my overwhelming depression got the best of me. I pulled my black hoodie tighter over my freezing ears and walked ahead of my parents to the hotel room, telling them I just needed to go to sleep. And I did immediately. Depression sometimes makes that easy. I was already losing consciousness as they entered after me, drifting off without so much as a good night. I then woke up to my mom saying my name, a harsh whisper. The room had 2 beds, my parents' bed closer to the door and mine further in the room. My mom's voice cut through the silence again. She sounded concerned for me. I didn't blame her, considering my mental state at the time. Groggy, I rolled over. "What?" I asked. As my eyes adjusted to the dim moonlight coming in through the curtains, I saw her turn to face me. She was surprised to see me in my bed. Her eyes got wide. If I'm in my bed, who was she talking to? We both looked back to where she was previously looking and see a hooded figure in all black standing over their bed. In that moment, we were both frozen with fear. Part 2, when I woke up to a hooded figure standing over me. We were on an island in the middle of the ocean and woke up to see a hooded stranger looming over us. This moment seemed to last forever. Life isn't like the movies, where the characters unleash a blood-curdling scream. Sometimes the only thing that comes out is panicked and guttural. My mom's words became low and severe as she said my dad's name in a dire voice I've never heard her use before. Then the hooded figure did something so bizarre and unsettling. It didn't advance towards us, but instead crouched in the corner near where it stood. The way it crouched was so absolutely unexpected, even in regards to this already unexpected situation, that it terrified me. It seemed animalistic. I knew 2 things. The hooded figure had been standing over us sleeping, and it's not acting in any sort of way that I can understand. As opposed to the infinite moment of this figure standing over us mere seconds ago, the series of events that unfolded when my hulking, ex-military dad woke up happened in an instant. Suddenly, we were at the door, not knowing which way the intruder went. My mom was screaming, "Get him! Get him!" My dad was running down one path of the horseshoe, further into the hotel, shouting through sheer adrenaline, "I'm going to fucking kill you!" I ran down the other path towards the street. When I got there, not a sign of the intruder, but it became suspiciously quiet behind me. I ran back to the room to find my dad quietly walking back, his head low. He gets really close to me and I hear him say, "It's a fucking kid." So basically, some young teen, tall and lanky as I am in my 20s, wearing all black including a black hoodie, went into the wrong room. Our room. The one time my parents just so happened to forget to lock the door. My mom woke up when he entered and seeing a tall person in a black hoodie thought it was me, assumedly leaving the room in a depressive episode. And when the hooded figure crouched, that was him realizing his mistake and panicking. He was scared of us. As I got back to the room, my mom walked out and hugs the kid, who was now crying his eyes out. I would be too if a massive ex-soldier was sprinting after me with murder in his eyes.
Am I the
I the asshole for choosing my son's pregnant ex's side over his? My son, 27, recently came back after 9 months from America and found out his girlfriend, 24, is 5 months pregnant. He kicked her out of the apartment due to the fact that the baby isn't his, but unfortunately for his girlfriend, she hasn't had anyone to turn to nor someone to stay with. So I, 46 female, let her live with me for the past 2 weeks, and I plan to let her stay till when she can afford a home of her own. I know what she did was wrong, but she's a pregnant woman and that baby is innocent in all this. My son is saying it's either her or him, and I said I pick her because regardless of what she did, she's still a human. She really needs the help, but since then, he hasn't talked to me.
Storytime about the guy who pretended to be gay in high school to get closer to all the girls. I know you guys have been waiting for that one. Yup. So a little background information. When my friends and I first met this kid, we were in middle school. And he was one of the popular kids. And he actually used to bully me and my friends. So fast forward, I was 15 and it was the first day of my freshman year in high school. So later on in the day, my friends and I, we were all sitting at lunch, and we're gonna call this boy Alex, when Alex had came and sat at our lunch table. Now, our lunch table had like 6 seats, and me and my other 3 friends, we were all sitting on this side, so he had sat right at the end. Very awkwardly too, just like kind of slammed his tray down and sat there just looking at us. Giving me creepy vibes. But okay. I was trying to ignore this kid because he literally bullied me in middle school and I did not want to ask him what was wrong or why he was sitting with us. But after 10 minutes of him not saying anything and really just staring at us, like, it looked like he was eavesdropping too, I finally asked him why he wasn't sitting with his friends. And at first he had said that his friends were just being jerks, but of course I didn't really care. I was just asking him because I wanted to know why the hell he was listening in on my friends and I's conversations. Plus, there were literally like 10 other empty open tables. No reason for him to come and sit with us. Like, you can't just bully someone for like 2 years and then go sit at their table and expect them to be nice to you. Sis, who do you think you are walking around with that kind of attitude? Ridiculous. So we just kept ignoring him, and then out of nowhere he's like, well, to be honest, they don't want to be friends with me anymore since I came out as gay. Plot twist, we were not expecting that. Nope, because this kid literally used to brag in 8th grade about how many girls he would get. I remember those kids. They were always weird. So we looked over at his friends' table and they were all just looking over and laughing at us. They had also bullied us too in middle school. So my best friend Julie, she goes over to their table and she starts yelling at all of them and pretty much makes a scene. Like, the whole lunchroom was looking at Julie. So after that, the security guard came over, took her to the office, and she got in-school suspension for trying to be a good person, you know, just sticking up for this kid who had bullied us. Which I'm pretty sure now she regrets doing that, but you know what? She was a good freaking person. Well, I'll be back once they are done doing whatever the hell they are doing. So every day after that, he started sitting at our lunch table. And low-key, I felt bad because we would all make plans in front of him and we wouldn't invite him because we still knew him as the kid who bullied us in middle school. Even though we were getting to know him more and stuff like that, it was still just very weird and awkward for us. So the one day while we were sitting at lunch, he had asked us if we all wanted to hang out. So of course we said yeah, and we all decided to go to my house. Which my house was usually where my friends and I would hang out anyways. So everybody got on my bus and we went to my house, started hanging out. And on the weekends, my parents would let me drink. So we were all drinking, having a super good time. And my friend Julie was just one of those people to bring up shit that was awkward, but she didn't care. She